Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. I'm going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, or rather safe words and sensitivity. We're going to talk about Mike Mearls, who was one of the major forces, driving forces behind 5e, not 5.5, but 5e of Dungeons & Dragons. And he's saying the players don't want safety in their games now. This is it's really interesting because this conversation keeps coming up again and again in relation to new Dungeons and Dragons, the all new, all different, all safer D&D, right? We've got the safe words controversy. We've got the sensitivity readers being brought in to make D&D safer. The whole feeling of the game right now seems to be one of acceptance and inclusion, and not, going and beating the shit out of orcs like we used to do back in the day. You can't beat up orcs because orcs are people too. And it's definitely for a very different a demographic. It seems like they're really trying very hard to appeal to younger players, to younger, more progressive players. But he's saying that younger players don't want this crap. Like, this is basically just WotC and a handful of people in the tabletop community just unilaterally making these decisions to make D&D a safer, kinder, gentler game. And kids these days, they don't want it. They want to bash orc brains. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about it. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, go out to our Substack, the Clownfish TV Substack, clownfishtv.substack.com, to get notified of new videos. Also, we have DRes. We're bringing it back. I think we're going to bring it back as a Substack, talking about games and nerd culture. And you can sign up for that one. It doesn't cost anything. dresd.substack.com. And we put an article up earlier today talking about this. But let's go to the source. Let's go to Mr. Mearls' Twitter account, or X account. And this is really interesting stuff because he's been very critical, I think, of D&D and the direction of D&D lately. Now, he worked for WotC before, and then he stepped away. They were trying to cancel him a couple of years ago. I'm not 100% clear on the details there, but he said he wasn't fired. Then he came back, and then they laid him off. So it's like, what the hell is going on here? But my understanding, and I'm not a huge 5e fan, but 5e started in earnest from what I can gather, right? The people behind 5e actually enjoyed and celebrated the legacy of Dungeons and Dragons, but unfortunately, 5e, the accessibility of 5e, I think, brought in a whole bunch of new players, progressive players who've now kind of taken over the scene, at least the online scene, and turned all of tabletop into Reddit, basically. But he's letting it fly. He said last week he was pointing out the number. I think it was last week. He pointed out the numbers. He said that the 5.5 books are not selling that well, and you can go to the USA Today book list to see how they're not selling. And now he's like, people don't want a safe game. He's at Gary Con. Imagine that, going to Gary Con, honoring Gary Gygax, whose Kickstarter is now, yes, I know he's passed, and unfortunately so is his son Ernie. But the Kickstarters of Gary Gygax material have done like $2 million now. People want the old stuff. They want the old stuff. They want dungeons and adventures and orc bashing and all that comes with it. But he said, because I'm at Gary Con and feeling salty, I think the idea that younger gamers want a safe game, whatever that means, is utterly wrong. Participation trophies are there to make the parents feel good about themselves. The kids know it's a show. Kids want to kill stuff. I mean, kids are playing Fortnite, for God's sake. He goes on to say the meaning of play comes from the sense of risk. We role play because it is a place where we can experience risk, loss, and defeat without enduring tangible harm. We're wired as humans to role play to learn how to navigate life's twists and turns. Whether it's a dead character or failure in whatever context the session presents, the bigger the threat, the more meaning play has to us emotionally and spiritually. Removing it from the game turns it into time-wasting slop. Time-wasting slop. That is awesome to have him come out and say that, like, if you want to, I mean, look at some of the new source books, right? When I was a kid, teenager, Dark Sun was out. We had Dragonlance, we had Greyhawk, we had Ravenloft, and now it's like, Strixhaven, where you can go to Mage Prom, and the new rule books, the new rule books. They got like, gay baker dwarves baking bread. Like, what the hell is up with that? Like, that stuff happened in between adventures, in between campaigns. We've got entire campaigns now where you basically are discouraged from using any violence whatsoever. You have to talk your way out of or charm your way out of a situation. Because what I'm saying, like, it's a bunch of theater kids and Tumblrites took over the hobby, and that's fine. If you look, it's always been your table, your rules, right? You can play the game however you want to play it, but like, don't expect the vast majority of the player base to go along with it. It's very niche to want to have all these phenomenal rules for combat that have been refined and honed over the decades available to you just to have you combat the espresso machine. The espresso machine's acting up today. So I'm not going to slay a dragon. I'm going to try to fix the bean machine. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's dumb, and kids want adventure. And maybe this is why it's not resonating with them. They're watching these kids play Stranger Things on TV, and they're like, wow, that is awesome. Right? That is really awesome. They're playing Vecna. They're doing all kinds of crazy. They're listening to heavy metal. It's like really cool. They're wearing robes, and it's like really dark and goth, and I love it. And then they play modern D&D, and it's like, yeah, so we're gonna go to prom. Yeah, I want to come over and see my house. It's just like Animal Crossing. I'm gonna redecorate everything. And it's like, what the hell? That's not what D&D is. I mean, it can be that if you want it, but don't expect everybody to want it. And a lot of people don't want it. But the thing is that, like, this is a guy who helped shape the future current, I guess, version of D&D, and like, he's hardly getting any interaction, right? But I guarantee if somebody put up some crazy shit on, well, GPA, Graph Paper Architect, sent me a link earlier today talking about the Barbie custom subclass or whatever. Somebody's offering it for sale, and you can be a Barbie girl in D&D. I mean, you wait for it. Hasbro will totally do that. Look what they've done to Magic the Gathering. It's basically Fortnite, the card game. They have all these crazy ass characters in Magic the Gathering now. I could totally see Hasbro being like, yeah, we're going to do a Barbie expansion, and then we're going to do like a My Little Pony expansion. Maybe we'll throw some Strawberry Shortcake into it too. And Power Rangers in D&D. Yeah, everybody wants that. I was like, what the hell are you doing? But yeah, and they're not buying this new version. Kids are watching kids from 40 years ago on Stranger Things. I know it's fake, but they're playing actual D&D, and that game does not exist anymore. We've talked about this. That Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, even hell, E.T., they're playing D&D. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a long time since I've seen E.T., but I can't remember if it's D&D or AD&D, but like, that's what they want. They want that. The kids today, and we've talked about this with video games, retro games, they want vinyl. They want to know what was like back in the day to play like actual D&D, to play actual arcade games, to blow the cart. They want to blow the cart and roll the dice. That's what they want to do. They don't want to blow the barista, right? It's a totally different, game. But you know what I'm saying? Like, this is just, it's not, D&D today is not Dungeons and Dragons, not anymore. It's a very generic tabletop role-playing system. Like, if you saw the new basic set, it doesn't look, I mean, it's a good idea in theory. They're trying to walk you through it like they used to do. They used to walk you through everything with the red box set. But like, it looks like a card game that your aunt from Portland would play with her aging millennial friends. It doesn't look like a fantasy game. It looks lame. It looks, you know what I'm saying? But that's the audience they've cultivated, right? But to have him come out and say it, I think it's really interesting. Let's see if anybody else is. He said, whether it's a dead character or a failure in whatever context the session presents, the bigger the threat, the more meaning play has to us emotionally and spiritually. Removing it from the game turns in, time wasting slop, no risk, no reward, no fun. Yeah, exactly. And again, we've covered this extensively. They have all of these ridiculous rules now, or rules changes, because they brought sensitivity readers in And you're not allowed to call people crazy. You're not allowed to have, black skin drow. You're not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that, because it might offend somebody. But it's going to offend your bottom line because kids aren't playing it. Again, D&D 5.5 for whoever the hell it's for, it feels like it's a game for, a bunch of aging millennial women. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's a game for kids. You're not getting kids into tabletop through this time-wasting slop, as he calls it. And I honestly think Hasbro would be better off just outsourcing D&D to another publisher at this point, if this is what it's going to be, right? I mean, they're chasing a certain audience, and that's fine. You might have that audience doesn't buy anything anyway. They complain about having to pay for dice, right? They literally complain about having to pay for dice, or they're like, oh, I stole my PDFs from whatever, and I can't. There's seriously, I've seen this on Reddit. They're like, tabletop's too expensive. There's a barrier to entry. I'm like, what? Buying a handbook? That's your barrier. That's your barrier to entry. Do you have a television? Do you have a computer? Do you have a cell phone? But you can't buy a $30 book, to play. You know what I'm saying? Like, these people, they want to be part of the hobby, but they don't want to actually invest in the hobby. And it's not like we're playing Warhammer where you got to go buy a whole bunch of figures or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, come on. The barrier to entry for D&D is very, very low. If you can't even afford that, if you're not willing to do the work, then maybe you should find a different hobby. I don't know. But there it is, guys. I'm going to wrap this one up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.